Keith, if you recall, when we started the company 6 years ago, we hired you. I was the first hire. You were the second. You came out of Boeing with a long career of aerospace product development and materials expertise, and you knew everything about materials, but really not that much about prosthetic feet. But we were trying to design the ultimate prosthetic foot, and you said, based on your many years of experience, you really thought that carbon fiber was not the right material to use. It's good for some applications, but not for prosthetics. So, which led you to conclude that if we had the proper design on a glass composite material, that would give us the best outcomes. The Rush Foot, the first one, came on the market 4 years ago, and we presumed that we would get some competition at some point. Now the first competitive foot has come out. They say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but I don't think we're really flattered at this point because of some deficiencies with the particular design of this foot that's come out. So I think it's pretty interesting that we'll be coming out with a second generation of our foot in the not too distant future, and our competitors are still working on the first generation and probably not getting that right. So I think it'll be pretty exciting in the next couple of years in terms of our new products that are coming out as what we're going to show the market. There's already thousands of amputees on some variation of the Rush Foot. So I think there's only a bright future for us in terms of new products that you guys have in mind as we move forward. So what's your view on how we proceed, Keith?
We considered being secretive about our material and what we were going to do, and try to hide it from our competition to see if we could get a competitive advantage that way. But the day before the conference, we sat down and we talked about it, when we were going to introduce this foot, and we said, let's just go proud with it. Let's go gold, and we're going to introduce it, and we're going to call it fiberglass, and we're going to take that market space, and that's going to be our strategy, and we're just going to go for it. It may not hit the market well to begin with, but we believed that the foot itself would create its own market space, and I think that we got there. So when we designed the Rush Foot, we did something unique. We did something that really isn't in the industry in this market space, and so we had a unique design and a unique material, and based on our initial clinical studies, we felt like we were going to do something that had really never been done before, and we were going to lead the industry into a new direction with our materials and design and shapes, and 4 years later, I think we've accomplished a lot of the goals. So we also knew that eventually someone would come in and do something similar to what we're doing. We knew that would happen, and so that has happened with the Maverick. And so you look at the material, you look at it, in many ways it looks like our foot, but the reality is it's much like a design that they already have in existence, and it's going to feel the same, it's going to perform the same. So really, while it looks like us and they're coming into our market space, it's not what we have.
Mark, you're an end user and an amputee for quite a few years, worn a lot of different feet. What's your view on this?
When I put on the Maverick, it basically felt like I was taking a step backwards. It was very, very conscious that I was taking a step on a prosthetic foot. When I would go up steps, instead of flexing and giving me the rebound and the feedback to go up the steps, it was just a dead slap on the step. I would have to use my other leg to then pull my right leg up instead of it giving me the feedback. So it was very tiring to walk on. I tried running on a treadmill on it. Normally on my Rush 87, I can run a full mile at my normal speed, and I'm barely winded. I ran 2 to 3 minutes at not quite my normal speed on the Maverick, and I was exhausted. I tried to talk to the camera afterwards, and I had to stop and catch my breath and kept pausing. It was exhausting. There's no feedback. There's no energy return. It feels like a brick. It feels like walking on something hard and stiff, and it was very uncomfortable. And in the time it took me to walk on the treadmill and then to jog and then slightly run on the treadmill, 2 to 3 minutes, and my knee and my hip were aching already. There's a very solid strike. There's no flex and roll over. It's very solid, and it's jolting. And it was very uncomfortable, and it was painful by the end of it.
Rich, you're our certified prosthetist and also virtually a lifelong amputee, and you've worn everything that's come out in the last 35 or 40 years. You're our third hire in the company, so you go back as Keith does. How about give us your perspective from the clinical side?
So I recall in the early days of our company formation, we had decided that we were going to do something different. And Keith had talked about bringing a different composite in, that carbon fiber was definitely not the appropriate composite for this application. So I was both optimistic yet skeptical at the same time. I was optimistic because I remember we discussed the benefits of the composite that we were looking to use, but at the same time I was a little bit skeptical and apprehensive primarily because of the conditioning that I had in the industry, both as an end user, as an amputee, and as well as a prosthetist. All I had ever had as an experience was the use of carbon fiber feet. And conversely, when it comes to the education that I had had as a prosthetist, all I had ever heard was the benefits of carbon fiber feet and what the manufacturer's messages were to the clinicians via their sales reps. That's all I had to go on. I also recall that when we started this company, we had a couple of very specific goals in mind. We were looking to overcome a couple of the issues that have always transpired with carbon fiber feet. Specifically, we were looking to overcome durability, reliability issues, and I know that we were also looking to address issues as they relate to the roll-through, specifically the sensation that we hear so often from amputees of a dead spot or a flat spot. Those were two of our biggest goals. Our goal wasn't just to come out and compete in the prosthetic foot market without any reason, and that's why we had those very specific goals in mind. So now we have seen a competitive foot come out in the market, clearly with the intention of following our composite, and hopefully, I'm assuming they were hoping to follow some of the benefits of the foot as well. However, despite the fact that they might look somewhat similar, at closer observation, when you look at the specs of the products, there are some differences that are worth discussing and pointing out. Specifically, the Maverick has a substantially shorter toe length. You're able to get more energy return from the longer toe lever of our foot. Another difference that you notice when you look directly at the feet is the Maverick has a split heel. We specifically chose not to split our composite either at the heel or at the toe because we're able to gain that ground compliance through the composite's motion in and of itself. Anytime you split and cut composites, you're introducing weak spots in that foot, and we didn't want to have that happen. The last big difference you're going to notice is actually the design. While they may look similar in build height and color, there's actually a big difference in the design as well. Specifically, we were hoping to address the roll-through characteristic of the prosthetic step. Therefore, we have a patented half rocker shape on the sole plate of our prosthetic foot. And if you notice, the Maverick does not have that. They have 2 points of contact, which according to our studies are going to produce a mechanical step, most likely to induce the sensation of a flat spot or dead spot in the prosthetic step. Just recently, there was a study that came out of the VA out of St. Petersburg, Florida, in which a group of researchers determined that the rush foot had the least amount or sensation of a flat spot or dead spot based on their baseline. Their baseline was actually the roll-through of the anatomical foot. In addition to the VA study with regards to the flat spot or the dead spot, there was also a study that came out of the Mayo Clinic. Dr. Kent Kaufman was specifically testing carbon fiber designed feet against our rush foot or the glass fiber composite designed feet. In all of the conditions he tested it, the glass fiber composite exceeded the performance of all of the carbon fiber designed feet that he tested.
Joel, you're also an end user, an experienced amputee, and you've worn all kinds of feet. So what would be your view on this?
So I've been using the Rush 87 myself for a little over 2.5 years now, and I've kind of thought, I'm going to be hard pressed to find anything else that walks this well, offers the same ground compliance or the same energy return off the toe. So obviously when I first saw the Maverick, my first thought was, I got to walk that thing. And, I didn't know what to expect. You look at that, you see similar overall design, sort of, in a similar yellow color, but that's pretty much where it ends. I found this foot to actually I don't want to say cause pain, but it definitely reduced the time I'm allowed to wear my prosthetic leg for a day. Typically, I've got my leg on from the time I get up out of bed to the time I go to bed. And I found that in wearing this foot, within 4 to 5 hours, my limb was already becoming sore. So there's certainly some sort of loss of shock absorption in the Maverick, that's for sure. I definitely saw my endurance level drop. While I do think the roll through was fairly smooth, it felt like I was rolling over a very, very short platform, if you will. And I'm sure, that kind of coincides with what you said about the difference in length of the toe lever and things like that, because I also felt a significant reduction in the energy return off the toe. Just simply walking, when it came to toe off, I didn't get any sort of return like I do from my Rush 87. I had to engage hip muscles and everything else to go ahead and complete my steps, which doesn't seem like you're doing a lot to just engage a few more muscles, but over the course of a day, you're certainly going to notice that and feel yourself tiring and becoming, weaker and wanting to sit down more often. So from an overall comfort standpoint, close, but no cigar. One thing that I think that is absolutely hilarious is that this is the Maverick, and if you go ahead and grab a thesaurus, you'll notice that that word is synonymous with rebel, a term that we have used in marketing since day one. So it's much like Blount said, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but in this case, it's really not all that flattering.
Okay, you amputees especially notice that amputees encounter all the time, here's the latest, here's the greatest, here's the hydraulic ankle, here's the powered ankle, here's the bionic foot. But, all these things that are more technologically supposedly advanced have a lot of shortcomings. They may be battery powered that need to be recharged several times a day. They're certainly not waterproof, and I know you guys are in and out of the water in the pool all the time. One thing I think amputees need to be aware of is that just because it's supposedly the latest and greatest and most technologically advanced product that's on the market doesn't mean that it's the right thing for their lifestyle. Because the more parts, the more breakage, the more maintenance, and you're going to have these feet for a minimum of 3 years and probably 3 million steps. So you have to think about not only is what's the best product for me today, but what's the best product for me next year and the year after that and the year after that, and how's my lifestyle going to be impacted on an ongoing basis by the prosthetic foot that I choose.